Go.
Okay, we're going to take a PL259 connector and we're going to install it onto an RG8 coax cable. The coax has a center conductor, you can see it's silver right there, and then it's got a white insulating jacket, and then it's got a copper braid, and then it's got a yellow or sometimes a black outer protective jacket. PL259 connector is going to connect on like that. That'll connect into the back of the radio or connect to another piece of coax. So to get started, we're going to disassemble this PL259 connector. This one happens to have a reducer. It's a separate component, just unscrews like that. We unscrew this part of the connector. Like that, and then it reveals this portion. This portion is essentially hollow. The cable will poke through and we'll solder the center conductor to the center stud and trim it to shape, and then the braid will get soldered on these holes. Now, a couple of things that you can goof up. It's easy to forget to put the screw-on parts on the cable first before you do your soldering. I think if you've done enough connectors, you've probably missed that at some point in time. Put your other part on, slide those back, and then slide them out of the way so you don't have to worry about them until you get your soldering done. Then we're going to have to trim this to shape, or to fit, I should say. So we want to take note of our sizes, and we want to have the jacket probably coming back up to about that point on the connector. We'll give that a try first. One thing is always make sure you're starting with enough length of coax so that if you get it wrong, you can always pull it off, take another try at it, trim it up, and keep going. Worst event, you do it 2 or 3 times and you get it right by the time you're done. The biggest thing to worry about when you do get this all done is to make sure that you have hot solder joints when you're done. Hot solder just means that the solder is hot enough that it melts into the center conductor and it melts onto the center stud, and it bonds electrically and mechanically. It's easy to do a cold solder joint, which means it looks like it's permeated the entire thing, but it really hasn't made a good connection. And then you have high SWRs. If you have a high SWR, always in the back of your mind think, geez, I wonder if I have a cold solder joint in my connector. Okay, so we're going to measure this up. And take a good set of pliers. These are electrical pliers. You can get them in most hardware stores. Home Depot, that sort of thing. Lowe's. Cable cuts pretty easily. While you're doing this, you want to have your soldering iron plugged in. Make sure that your soldering tip is not in contact with anything that's flammable. Make sure you don't have gasoline in the area or paint thinners, those types of things. You're going to need a nice hot soldering iron, so it's good to have it heating up while you're doing your other connections. You want to peel back the copper jacket, roll it back on itself, and we want to expose the center braid. Again, we'll line it up This wire stripper has different size holes. You want to select the hole that's appropriate for the size of your wire. This looks like about, yeah, I bet you it's somewhere between a 14 and an 18. We'll try a 14 as a first guess. Or a 12. Yeah, let's try 12. Twist that around. If it's the right size, you should be able to give it a couple of twists and then the outer conductor should pull off. That's not pulling off, it's not all the way through, so we'll try one size lower. Better to start with a size too large rather than too small. If it's too small, you're going to trim off some of the inner conductors. You want to make sure you've got all of the conductors so you can conduct all of the power to your antenna and not lose any power on the way. That looks a little better, but it's not quite there yet. We'll try another size down. An electrician or a trained electronics technician probably knows the size just by looking at it. There, now we've got it. See how that pulled off? And that just pulled off. We'll examine the center conductor and make sure it's not nicked. Looks like we're in the ball game. Now we'll try it and make sure it'll fit into the center conductor. One trick is to get it nice and straight. Also twist it up on itself a little bit. That'll keep it from pulling apart as you're pushing it through. There, we've got it. I can see the center conductor pulling through. Now I need to trim the braid back a little bit. A little too much braid. Bunching up just a little bit. Again, you want to do this without breaking the braid, severing any electrical connections that you would otherwise be able to make. Now we'll pull that back and we'll smooth it right over the top of our adapter, or reducer, I guess it is. This is one of those tasks, if it looks pretty, it's probably going to work. expect to get poked a few times. There we go, now I can see my center conductor coming through. Now we're going to twist it together nice and tight. Okay, the next part of the video we're going to solder it together.